My name is Lydia and my student number is S04411056. The title of the speech is a guerrilla, guerrilla gardener in South Central Los Angeles by Ron Finley. I'm the freshman at NCUE. I live in South Central. This is South Central. Liquor stores, fast food, vacant lots. So the city planners, they get together and they figure they're going to change the name South Central to make it represent something else. So they change it to South Los Angeles. Like this is going to fix what's really going wrong in the city. This is South Los Angeles. Laughter, liquor store, fast food, vacant lots, just like 26.5 million other Americans. I live in a food desert. I live in the food desert, South Central Los Angeles, home of the drive-through and the drive-by. Funny thing is, the drive-throughs are killing more people than the drive-bys. People are dying from curable disease in South Central Los Angeles. For instance, the obesity rate in my neighborhood is 5 times higher than, say, Beverly Hills, which is probably 10 miles away. I got tired of seeing this happening, and I was wondering, how would you feel if you had no access to healthy food? If every time you walk out your door you see the ill effects that the prison food system has on your neighborhood? I see wheelchairs, boats, and so like used cars. I see dialysis centers popping up like Starbucks, and I figured this has to stop. So I figured that the problem is the solution. Food is the problem, and food is the solution. Plus, I got tired of driving 45 minutes round trip to get an apple that wasn't impregnated with pesticides. So what I did, I planted a food forest in front of my house. It was a strip of land that we call the parkway. It's 150 feet by 10 feet. The thing is, it's owned by the city, but you have to maintain it. So I'm like, cool, I can do whatever the hell I want, since it's my responsibility. And I gotta maintain it. And this is how I decided to maintain it. So me and my group, LA Green Grounds, we got together and we started planting my food forest. Fruits, trees, the whole nine. Vegetables, what we do. We are a pet, eat forward kind of group, where it's composed of gardeners from all walks of life, from all over the city, and it's completely volunteer. And everything we do is free. And the garden, it was beautiful. And then somebody complained. The city came down on me and basically gave me a citation saying that I had to remove my garden, which this citation was turning into a warrant. And I'm like, come on, really? A warrant for planting food on a piece of land that you could care less about? Laughter, and I was like, cool, bring it. Because this time I wasn't coming up. So LA, Times got a hold of it. Steve Lopez did a story on it and the talked to the concealment concealment man concealment And one of the Green Grounds members, they put up a petitions on change.org, and with 900 signatures, we were a success. We had a victory on our hands. My councilman even called in and said how they endorse and love what we are doing. I mean, come on, why wouldn't they? LA lists the United States in vacant lots that the city actually owns. They own 26 square miles of vacant lots. That's 20 central parks. That's enough space to plant 725 million tomatoes plants. Why in the hell would they not okay this? Growing one plant will give you 10,000 seeds, when $1 worth of green beans will give you $75 worth of produce. It's my gospel when I'm telling people grow your own food. Growing your own food is like printing your own money. Applause. See, I have a legacy in South Central. I grew up there. I raised my son there, and I refuse to be a part of this manufactured reality that was manufactured for me by some other people, and I am manufacturing my own reality. See, I'm an artist. Gardening is my graffiti. I grow my art just like a graffiti artist. Where they beautify words. Me, I beautify laws, parkways. I use the garden, the soil, like it's a piece of cloth, and the plants and the trees. That's my embellishments for the clothes. You'd be surprised what the soul could do if you let it be your canvas. You just couldn't imagine how amazing a sunflower is and how it affects people. So what happened? I I have witnessed my garden become a tool for the education, a tool for transformation of my neighborhood. To change the community, you have to change the positions of the soil. We are the soil. Would be surprised how kids are affected by this. Gardening is the most therapeutic and defiant act you can do, especially in the inner city. Plus, you get strawberries. Laughter. I remember this time there was this mother and a daughter cat. It was like 10:30 at night, and they were in my yard. And I came out, and they looked so ashamed. So I'm like, man, it made me feel bad that we were there, and I told them, you don't have to do this. This is on the street for a reason. It made me feel ashamed to see people that were this close to me that were hungry, and this only reinforced why I do this. And people ask me, Finn, are, aren't you afraid people are going to steal your food? And I'm like, hell no, I ain't afraid they're gonna steal it. That's why it's on the street. That's the whole idea. I want them to take it, but at the same time, I want them to take back their health. There's another time when I put a garden in a homeless shelter in downtown Los Angeles. They are the guys. They helped me unload the truck. It was good, and they just shared the stories about how this affected them and how they used to play with their mother and their grandmother, and it was just cool to see how this changed them, if it was only for that one moment. So Green Grass has gone on to plant maybe 20 gardens. We've had like 50 people come to our diligence and participate, and it's all volunteers. If kids grow kale, kids are eat kale. Laughter if they grow tomato, they eat tomatoes, applause. But when none of this is presented to them, if they are not shown how food affects the mind and the body, they blindly eat whatever the hell you put in front of them. I see young people and want and they want to work, but they're in this thing where they are caught up. I see kids of color, and they're just on this track that's designed for them, that leads them to nowhere. So with gardening, I see an opportunity where we can train these kids to take over their communities, to have a sense sustainable life. And when we do this, who knows, we might produce the next George Washington Carver. But if we don't change the composition of the soil, we will never do this. Now, this is one of my plans. This is what I want to do. I want to plant a whole block of gardens where people can share in the food in the same block. I want to take shipping containers and turn them into health cafes. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about no free shit, but because free is not sustainable. The funny thing about sustainability, you have to sustain it. Laughter, applause. What I'm talking about is putting people to work and getting kids off the street, and letting them know the joy, the pride of, and the honor in growing your own food, opening farmers markets. So what I want to do here, we gotta make this sexy. So I want us all to become eco, ecolo, evolutionary religious gangsters gardener. We gotta flip the script on what a gangster is. If you ain't a gardener, you ain't gangster. Get gangster with your shovel, okay? And let that be your weapon of choice. Applause. So basically, if you want to meet with me, you know. If you want to meet, don't call me. If you want to sit around in cushy chairs and have meetings where you talk about doing some shit, If you want to meet with me, come and gardening. Come to garden with your shovels so we can plant some shit. Please. Thank you. Applause. Thank you. Applause. My name is Lydia and my student number is S044106. The title of the speech is How to Stop Torture by Karen Xie. I'm a freshman at NCUE. In 1994, I walked into a prison in Cambodia, and I met a 12-year-old boy who had been tortured and was denied access to counsel. And as I looked into his eyes, I realized that for the hundreds of letters I had written for political prisoners, that I would never have written a letter for him, because he was not a 12-year-old boy who had done something important for anybody. He was not a political prisoner. He was a 12-year-old boy who had stolen a bicycle. What I also realized at the point was that it was not only Cambodia, but of the 113 developing countries that tortured, 93 of these countries have all passed laws that say you have a right to a lawyer and you have a right not to be tortured. And what I recognized was that there was an incredible window of opportunity for us as a world community to come together and end torture as an investigative tool. We often think of torture as being political tortured or reserved for just the worst. But in fact, 95% of torture today is not for political prisoners. It is for people who are in broken down legal system and unfortunately because torture is the cheapest form of investigation. It's cheaper than having a legal system, cheaper than having a lawyer and early access to counsel. It is what happens most of the times. I believe today that it is possible for us as a world community, if we make a decision, to come together and end torture as an investigative tool in our lifetime. But it will require three things. First is a training, empowerment, and connection of defenders worldwide. The second is ensuring that there is systematic early access to counsel, and the third is commitment. So in the year 2000, I began to wonder, what if we came together? Could we do something for these 93 countries? And I founded International Bridge to Justice, which has a specific mission of ending torture as an investigative tool and implementing due process rights in the 93 countries by placing trained lawyers at an early stage in police stations and in courtrooms. My first experiences, though, did come from Cambodia, and at the time I remember first coming to Cambodia, and there were in 1994 still less than 10 attorneys in the country because the Khmer Rouge had killed them all. And even 20 years later, there was only 10 lawyers in the country, so consequently, you'd walk into the prison and not only would you meet 12-year-old boys, you'd meet women and you'd say, "What are you here?" Women would say, "Well, I've been here for 10 years because my husband committed a crime, but they can't find him. So it's just a place where there was no rule of law." The first group of defenders came together, and I still remember as I was training. I said, "Okay, what do you do for an investigation?" And there was a silence in the class. And finally, one woman stood up in audible name, and she said, "Curious," which means teacher. She said, "I have defended more than 100 people and have never had to do any investigation because they all come with confessions." And we talk about as a class the fact that number one, the confessions might not be reliable, but number two, we did not want to encourage the police to keep doing this, especially as it was not against the law, and it took a lot of courage for these defenders to decide that they would begin to stand up and support each other in implementing this law. And I still remember the first cases where they came, all 25 together. She would stand up and they were in the back, and they would support her, and the judge kept saying, "No, no, no, no. We are going to do things the exact same way we've been doing them." But one day the perfect case came, and it was a woman who was a vegetable seller. She was sitting outside of a house. She said she actually saw the person run out who she thinks stole whatever the jewelry was. But the police came, they got her. There was nothing on her. She was pregnant at the time. She had cigarette burns on her. She'd miscarried. And when they brought her case to the judge, for the first time, she stood up and she said, "Yes, there's no evidence except for your tortured confessions, and you will be released." And the defenders began to take cases over and over again, and you will see. They have step by step began to change the course of histories in Cambodia. But Cambodia is not alone. I used to think, well, is it Cambodia or is it other countries? But it is in so many countries. In Burundi, I walked into a prison and it wasn't a 12-year-old boy. It was an 8-year-old boy for stealing a mobile phone. Or a woman. I picked up her baby. Really cute baby. I said, "Your baby is so cute." It wasn't a baby, she was 3. And she said, "Yeah, but she's why I'm here." Because she was accused of stealing 2 diapers and an iron for her baby and still had been in prison. And when I woke up to prison director, I said, "You've got to let her out." A judge would let her out, and he said, "Okay, we can talk about it, but look at my prison. 18% of the 2,000 people here are without a lawyer. What can we do?" So lawyers began to courageously stand out together to organize a system where they can take cases. But we realized that it's not only the training of the lawyers, but the connection of the lawyer that makes a difference. For example, in Cambodia, it was that in Audible name did not go alone, but she had 24 lawyers with her who stood up together. And in the same way, in China, they always tell me it's like a fresh wind in the desert when we can come together. Or in Zimbabwe, where I remember innocence after coming out of a prison where everybody stood up and said, "I've been here for 1 year, 8 years, 12 years without a lawyer." He came and we had a chatting together and he said, "I have heard it said," because he had heard people mumbling and grumbling. "I have heard it said that we cannot help to create justice because we do not have the resources." And then he said, "But I want you to know that the lack of resources is never an excuse for injustice." And with that, he successfully organized 68 lawyers who have been systematically taking the cases. The key that we see, though, is training and then early access. I was recently in Egypt and was inspired to meet with another group of lawyers. What they told me is that they said, "Hey, look, we don't have a police on the streets now. The police are one of the main reasons why we had the revolutions. They were torturing everybody all the time." And I said, "But there's been tens of millions of dollars that have recently gone into the development of the legal system here. What's going on?" I met with one of the development agencies, and they were training prosecutors and judges, which is the normal best, and as opposed to defenders. And they showed me a manual, which actually was an excellent manual. I said, "I'm gonna copy this. It had everything in it. Lawyers came at the police station. It was perfect. Prosecutors was perfectly trained." But I said to them, "I just have one question, which is, by the time that everybody got to the prosecutor's office, what had happened to them?" And after a pause, they said they had been tortured. So the pieces are not only the training of the lawyers, but us finding a way so to systematic systematically implements early access to control because they are the safeguard in the system for people who are being tortured. And as I tell you this, I'm also aware of the fact that it sounds like, oh, okay, it sounds like we could do it, but can we really do it? Because it sounds big, and there are many reasons why I believe it's possible. The first reason is the people on the ground who find ways of creating miracles because of their commitment. It's not only innocent who I told you about in Zimbabwe, but defenders all over the world who are looking for these pieces. We have a program called Justice Makers, and we realize there are people that are courage courageous and want to do things, but how can we support them? So it's an online contest where it's only $5,000 if you come up with an innovative way of implementing justice. And there are 30 justice makers throughout the world from Sri Lanka to Swaziland to the DRC, who with $5,000 to do amazing things through SMS programs, through paralegal programs, through whatever they can do. And it's not only these justice makers, but people with courageously see figure out who their network are and how they can move it forward. So in China, for instance, great laws came out where it says police cannot torture people or they will be punished. And I was sitting side by side with one of our very courageous lawyers and said, how can we get this out? How can legal with and how can we make sure that this is implemented? This is fantastic. And he said to me, well, do you have money? And I said, no. And he said, that's okay. We can still figure it out. And on December 4, he organized 3,000 members on the Youth Communist League from 14 of the top law schools who organized themselves develop posters with the new laws and went to the police station and began what he says is a non-violent legal revolution to protect citizens' rights. So I talk about the fact that we need to train and support defenders. We need to systematically implement early access to counsel. But the third and most important thing is that we make a commitment to this. And people often say to me, you know, this is great, but it's widely idealistic, never going to happen. And the reason that I think that those words are interesting is because those were the same kinds of words that were used for people who decided they would end slavery and or end apartheid. It began with a small group of people who decided they would commit. Now, that's one of our favorite points from the defenders, which they share from each other, is take courage, friends. The road is often long. The path is never clear and the stakes are very high, but deep down, you are not alone. And I believe that if we can come together as a world community to support not only defenders but also everyone in the system who is looking toward it, we can end torture as an investigative tool. I and always because I'm sure the question are, and I'd be happy to talk to you at any point. But what can I really do? Well, I would say this. First of all, you know what you can do. But second of all, I would leave you with this: the story of Krishna, who actually was my inspiration for starting international bridge to justice. Vishnu was a 4-year-old boy when I met him, who was born in a Cambodian prison in Kendo province. But because he was born in I met him who was born in Cambodian prison in Kendo province. But because he was born in the prison, everybody loved him, including the guards. So he was the only one who was allowed to come in and out of the bars. So you know there's bars. And by the time the Vishnu was getting bigger, which means what gets bigger, your head gets bigger, so he would come to the first bar, the second bar, and the third bar, and then really slowly move his head so he could fit through and can come back third, second, first, and he would grab my pinky because what he wanted to do every day is he wanted to go visit. You know, he never quite made it to all of them every day, but he wanted to visit all 156 prisoners, and I would leave him, and he would put his fingers through, or if they were dark cell. It was like iron corrugated, corrugated, and he would put his finger through, and most of the presents said that he was their greatest joy and their sunshine, and they looked forward to him. And I was that here's Vishnu. He's a 4-year old boy. He was born in prison with almost nothing, no material goods, but he had a sense of his own heroic journey, which I believe we are all born into. He said, probably I can do everything, but when I can do something, and I will do the one thing that I can do. So I thank you for having a prophetic imagination to imagine the shaping of the new world with us together and invite you to into this journey with this. Thank you. Applause. Thank you. Applause. Thank you. Applause.